What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for the next episode of our weekend review, where you and I just chill out for a little while. We're just going to talk about the things that are going on with the channel, talk about the way things are going to be orchestrated from here on into the future, and give you a little bit of behind-the-scenes notice, I guess, when it comes to the different series that we have running for right now. I'm going to move this mic stand. There it is. Perfect. Couldn't have asked for a better placement. So what's going on at the Nerd Castle right now? Not a whole lot. School is back in this week, and so I'm hoping that everybody that's back in their academic studies or engaged in education or otherwise is having a good time. Seeing all your friends and being back on campus is a very, very cool thing. You don't really miss it until it's gone, but once it's gone, you're like, yeah, I remember that. It was pretty awesome. Like, homework came back and, like, you know, labs came back. Lectures came back, but at the same time, you still got to chill with everybody you didn't get to see for the entire summer, so it's pretty cool. Hope everybody's doing well in that regard. For right now, the channel's going to be undergoing some changes in the next couple weeks. Things are going to be leaving, and some things are going to be coming along. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit, but for right now, let's talk about the series that we have running. At the moment, first and foremost, YouTube is like broken. All of my videos say that I have 0 comments. Everything has been very, very odd lately. I'm not sure if notifications are working. It's a strange week on YouTube, and I'm kind of just keeping an eye on it, but I thought it was going to be like a 24-hour thing. But anyways, I don't get like notifications about anything right now. I can't see comments. Like, YouTube broke something on the back end for me, and unfortunately, I got to jump through a bunch of hoops in order to get certain things to show up in my UI. And in addition to that, it seems like maybe they broke notifications along the way. I'm not completely and totally sure, but this week has been a very, very odd week. So if I've missed anything along the way, please forgive me. Just know that things are very, very weird through YouTube right now. Things are not working the way that they're supposed to be, and I'm hoping that it gets cleared up in the next week or so, because this is a very, very important time for the channel in which we need to decide like what we're going to be doing as we go forward. And so anyways, that said, once that all evens out and YouTube fixes whatever weird shenanigans are happening on their end, I'm going to do a rough appraisal of how each of the series are doing for right now. I think we might be a little bit survival heavy at the moment. There are a couple of series that are underperforming, which means that it causes me to give them an over amount of attention, I suppose. I guess it makes me pay over attention to them. I like that word, over attention. It sounds like the overlord. He gives over attention. But anyways, I am paying attention to several series right now. Actually, about half of them are performing very, very poorly, and what that means is that given the fact that school is back in right now, this is a rocky period for a YouTuber. It means that, like, you need to make sure that all of the different series you have up are crowd pleasers and that everybody is stoked about it. I feel good about half of them, and half of them are going to be going away in the next couple weeks because I have bigger things that are coming along, and so there are several games that I'd like to show off if we can make it happen. So let's talk about the games that we got going on right now one by one, and that should allow us to sort of just like step through iteratively and talk about what's coming and what's going. So Sheltered is definitely staying for right now. I'd like to finish our playthrough. I don't think we're going to do a second playthrough, but as of right now, Sheltered is sort of the darling of the channel. It's a game that I very much enjoy, and I think that if you're into this War of Mine but you wanted less narrative but more randomness and more simminess, then I think that you would want to swap from this War of Mine to Sheltered. However, if you were looking for something that's a bit more narrative driven and you want to do more stealth, then I would say that this War of Mine is the better game between the two. There's been a lot of people lately drawing correlations between the two games, and I don't think that that's a fair comparison. I think that, like, liminally, the games have some things that look similar when you first start to play them, but after putting like 20 hours into each game, I definitely think they're differentiated in a number of different ways, and I think that depending on what you want out of a survival game, you would want to favor one over the other. I definitely think if you like narrative, if you like stealth, and you like a lot of drama, then I think this War of Mine is going to be where you want to go with that, and you've just got to accept that the combat system is sort of iffy and doesn't work sometimes. And if you were going for something that's akin to like The Sims in the apocalypse, along with some lighter sort of JRPG combat type mechanics, you would want to go with Sheltered, because it's more about building your base and constantly expanding and then inviting more people to live with you and just like seeing how big you can take this thing before it falls apart, a la Banished and games like that. So it's got a lot of interesting things going on with it. For right now, the thing that I keep finding to be entertaining about it is the fact that they keep throwing new things at me. Like, I really expected for the early access game. When you play a lot of early access games, the weird thing is that you come across a lot of titles that release too early and just were not ready for prime time. Whereas when it comes to Shelter, it just keeps surprising me with the amount of content you can continue to get out of it. Like, right around the time where I start to get bored with the stuff that I have in game, something new comes along, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so I think the developers did a good job choosing a time to release the title, and I definitely think that it was ready for Steam, whereas, you know, there are many, many games I see on a weekly basis. I usually get about 20 games a week through my email from random developers and whatnot, and I usually filter and I'm like, not you, not you. And like, I would say probably 80% of all the titles I get sent are really just not ready for prime time. They shouldn't be going on Steam. They shouldn't be going on YouTube. They should only be going back into like whatever development software that the developer's using in order to get them done, because they need more work. But for right now, I like Sheltered. Shelter's not going anywhere. We are going to finish our playthrough. I don't think I'm going to do a second playthrough, but I will more than likely just kind of like ride this one out as far as we can go. I'm glad that I re-recorded it, because in the past, the first series that I recorded I was not pleased with, but what are you going to do about it? Q&A is doing... Q&A is doing all right. I'm pleased with the Q&A series. It's a series that I like doing. I don't think it's necessarily like super popular or a crowd pleaser, but once again, it's difficult to tell right now because YouTube's broken. So I'm kind of like withholding judgment on a lot of stuff right now until I figure out what YouTube has potentially broken, because for the last 3 days, I guess, things, well, 3 to 4 days, things have been really, really broken on YouTube, and so I'm not entirely sure how much of it can be chalked up to just poor performance in a series and how much can be chalked up to YouTube just not functioning properly. But anyways, the Q&A series, I enjoyed doing it. It's fun to do. I hope you guys continue to leave me your comments and your questions down there. Pretty consistently getting about 200 questions every single time that I post it, and I do have fun kind of filtering through them and, you know, letting you guys know a little bit more about me. It's a fun thing to do. Stalker. So Stalker's kind of in a weird place right now, because Stalker, it's the next one on my list that we needed to talk about. Stalker Clear Sky is kind of a dark horse for us right now. I enjoy playing the game, and I want to finish it, and I am going to finish it. But it may get backburnered, which means that it's just going to get uploaded every couple days instead of every single day, because as of right now, it's eating up a slot, and it's performing very, very, very poorly. Stalker and Terraria are both, well, not so much Terraria, actually. I would say that Stalker is by far our lowest performer for right now. And so I do want to finish the game. It's narrative-based, and I do feel like I want to finish it because I enjoyed the game, so we will be finishing it. But I think when it comes to scheduling, it's going to have to be sort of like moved around and done a little bit less frequently so that we can make room for some newer stuff. I was initially infatuated with the way the game works, and I still enjoy the game, but it's a little bit sad when, like, I really expected, because Stalker, the first game, is one of my most popular series ever, and so I'm not sure what the difference is. I guess nobody likes Clear Sky might be the difference. That's a pretty well-accepted fact about the trilogy, is that everybody hates Clear Sky, so maybe that's what happened. Who even knows? Empyrion. This week we should be able, so I sat down with Empyrion, and I built, like, a quarter of the ship on camera, and I realized that this was going to be like a 5-hour endeavor, and I posted on Twitter about it. Empyrion, I like that game very much, but I think we probably only got about 5 or 10 episodes left in it, because once I finish the starship, we're probably going to go into space, explore a couple of planets, and given the amount of time and resources it took me just to build the first starship, I thought that the first starship was going to be around the same size as our hovercraft, and in reality, it ended up being like a huge project. It took me about 4.5 hours to build it. It took a huge, I think it took me almost 800 or 900 iron ingots just to build the hull and everything. It was huge, and so it ended up being about 4 times the size of our hovercraft, and once I got it all purdy and I got it the way that I wanted, I think we need to add weapons to it, but I ended up not doing most of it on camera, because after I spent like maybe 45 minutes fiddling with it on camera, I realized this was going to be a huge project that was just going to take forever. And so basically I kicked in, I put on my Blind Guardian the other night, put on my Rush Mix, and then I just kind of like sat there for 4.5 hours and just fiddled with the ship and got it built. We should have, I think, on Tuesday, the first episode that we have our spacecraft should be up. We'll be flying off into space. We'll have a look around and see what we can find. There's only a couple planets in the game right now, so I think we're kind of hitting like the edge of the content. But at the same time, I still wanted to make some of the tier 2 weapons. I wanted to fiddle around with stuff. Given how expensive it is to create a spacecraft, oh my god. I don't know how they're going to do PvP or multiplayer, because like I would be downright homicidal if I lost my spacecraft. It takes so much work to put one together. Like once you have one, if somebody is just like waiting for you in orbit and just like wrecks your shit the second you leave orbit, I don't even know. Like they either, what I would suggest is they need to make some kind of docking bay where after you spent the resources one time to build your ship, you can actually go back and you can save it inside of your dock like you do with, let's say, Grand Theft Auto. You save your cars inside of your garage. Once you build your spacecraft, you should be able to land on the dock and save it. That way, if it gets destroyed, you can just go back to your dock and you open up a console and it says, it'll cost you this many resources to just have us rebuild it for you as an AI, because doing it by hand all over again for memory, oh my god, it would just be a mess. And so anyways, it would be a really, really nice feature, I think, to have, where you could just click a button and it just takes like 900 iron ingots from you and goes, and it just like rebuilds it right in front of you, and I think that'd be pretty awesome. But we don't have any PvP in our world right now. I would sincerely say, though, that if somebody destroyed my spacecraft, I would be in a murderous mood. No joke. Relic Hunters Zero. Not a crowd pleaser either, but you know what? The game is almost done, so I'm not even going to worry about it. We do end up beating the game on camera. I had a blast with it, and any series that I enjoy is one that I'm just going to put up online. I think that when it comes to like top-down arena shooters, I'm a big sucker for those sorts of games, and so I've always, since Smash TV, I've loved Relic Hunters Zero. I said Z. Relic Hunters Zero. I enjoyed, you know, Nuclear Throne, Vintage Year, all of those sorts of games. And so Relic Hunters Zero is actually one of the few games I've seen so far that emulates Nuclear Throne but manages to be as good. And so I think, given the fact the game is free, I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it once it goes up on Steam this week. I think it comes out on like the 18th or the 20th. But once it comes out, I think people are going to be really, really stoked about it. I know that here at the Nerd Castle, it wasn't one of people's favorite series, you know, but at the same time, I had a blast playing it, and they've actually updated the game. I wanted to point that out. In the first episode, the developers had said something about they were pained to see that I was playing such an old version, and I wasn't really sure if they were trying to suggest I should update the game. I was playing the Steam version, so I couldn't update it any further. The Steam version was updated as far as the developers themselves updated it through their developer console on Steam. And so this week, though, it's a little bit disappointing because with Relic Hunter Z, like the 2 days after I finished recording the series, they updated it, and the new version has like a way better frame rate. The new version like flows better, the stamina works better, the aiming works better. They updated it to where it's got like a bunch of new mini games and stuff like that. They added new weapons, new characters, and I was like, well, damn, it would figure. This is my luck on YouTube. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Recorded the game 2 days too early, which was just like, sigh. But if it ends up, I'm going to wait and see what happens when the game comes out, and if we end up driving search traffic through Relic Hunters, I'll probably do a second series where we play with some of the extra characters and whatnot. But for right now, I think I recorded 6 episodes, we beat the game on the 6th episode, and then I'll probably leave it there until I figure out what's going to happen with it, because I think my audience here at the Nerd Castle was not stoked about the series, and so unless a bunch of people come in through search, I'll probably leave it right where it's at. Terraria. Terraria is sort of in the same spot as Stalker, except that it's performing way better. So Terraria will more than likely, I mean, I've been doing it anyway, so you guys should be used to it by now. I've backburnered both Terraria and Stalker for right now, and you may have noticed I've kind of been alternating them on off days and kind of just like uploading them when I have them and things like that. The reason for that is just that I think Terraria, we've got like 50 episodes in right now. And so it's miraculous for any YouTube channel if you don't focus on one type of content. So let's say that you're a Grand Theft Auto channel, then you could do 500 episodes of Grand Theft Auto and nobody's going to care. That's perfectly fine. But I did something when I created this channel that was really sort of ill-advised. I created a variety channel, which is a very bad idea on YouTube. People often ask me if I have any advice for you if you're starting YouTube. And my advice would be to focus on either a genre or a specific game. And so if you make a variety channel like mine or NTAC, or there's a couple of other channels around my size that have the exact same thing, you're going to suffer for it because the average attention span on YouTube is average at best. And so what's going to happen is most people will come in, they'll have the one series that they like, and then they're going to subscribe, but they're never going to come for any other series that you ever do again because that one game is the only thing that they wanted to see footage of. And so channels like mine are very much beholden to search traffic in order to survive. And I would say it's probably the same for guys like NTAC and some of those other channels. And so anyways, my point is people always ask me that what the first thing they should think about when they do YouTube is. It should be do not do a variety channel. I would tell you if there's one thing I would change going back and doing my channel differently, I would have focused more on reviews and I would have focused less on Let's Plays. Now, to a certain extent, the reason my reviews today are so popular is because of my Let's Plays that brought people in, but running a variety channel is very, very stressful, and like honestly, you kind of live hand to mouth for a long time. Even so, when you run a variety channel, you never quite know when your career is going to be ending, just because if you have, let's say that you do a Grand Theft Auto channel, you're always going to do Grand Theft Auto, so all of your fans are there for Grand Theft Auto. If you're doing a variety channel, you kind of have to make sure you have a certain number of successful series per month, and if you don't, let's say that you're like I am right now, where you've been treading water for about 6 months, you haven't had anything really successful, but you've had just enough like successful series to keep your ass out of the fire for another month. Like every time it seems like the ship's going down, you like blunder into another series that keeps you afloat for another month. it's stressful. I would not, if I had kids or whatever, I wouldn't do this anymore. If I actually had responsibilities like a family or whatever, I'd probably just go find a real job, because I've got hookups like, you know, longshoreman hookups and warehousing hookups and things like that, because I live right next to the bay. And so anyways, I'm not sure that I would, the reason I can do this the way that it is when it's sort of like fly by night and inconsistent is because, like, I don't have kids, I don't have a family, I don't have responsibilities or anything like that. And so I can tighten my belt when the time comes along and not force other people to tighten their belt along with me, which I think is kind of a screwed up thing to do. I really sincerely, if you got a family or whatever, YouTube's it's a tough business to be in. It's a rough business to be in unless you're doing very focused content. And I don't know how I got off on that diatribe, but that would be my advice to the new guys, is create something that's either locked in one genre, like only survival games, only building games, only shooter games, like something that will make your channel more consistent, because running a variety channel is a stressful and rough transition. Believe me when I say that. Believe me when I say it. So anyways, what other stuff? Oh yeah, Terraria. So Terraria I'm still enjoying, but I feel like there's kind of like this weird ramp up in between hard mode and normal mode. Like there was nothing left in normal mode that could hurt us at all, except for falling in lava. Like, and because of that, I thought that it was okay to transition into hard mode. And I find that hard mode, it doesn't have a difficulty curve, it has a grind curve, where first you've got to go out, you got to break as many altars as possible, and then you got to really hope that you don't get a pirate invasion. You got to really hope that you don't get whatever that big metal worm thing is that spawns. And if you do, you're just like hosed. You just sit there and you wait to die. We lucked out in that I had a lava pit and I just jumped into it over and over and over again, because all my money was in my piggy bank anyways, and that's how I killed the pirate invasion. And then I kind of just like cheese moded the Flying Dutchman, or the Flying Douchman as I like to call it, because that thing always shows up at the wrong moment. But it seems like there's this weird, it's not like a difficulty period, it's just kind of like the early period where you hope you don't get any of the random events because you can't handle any of them yet. And at the same time, you've got to farm as much ore, orichalcum, you know, your adamantite, your mithril, or whatever it is that you're going after. You got to farm it as quickly as possible, while at the same time just hoping you don't get any of those shit events. And so we're kind of at the point right now, I think I've got it recorded out to like episode 11 or 12. I put up episode 5 yesterday. I recorded a bunch of episodes where we got another pirate invasion. Like, seriously, we've had like 3 pirate invasions now in a week. And I was like, ugh. They definitely, the developers need to put an internal timer on some of those events, because they come around so much that it sort of destroys your motivation to play the game. Like, and it's not that I can't deal with the pirates. It's just that every time the pirates attack, I got to cut the episode and I got to sit there for an hour just like fighting with pirates, and then come back in and be like, okay, it's all over. You guys have already seen a pirate invasion anyways. At this point, I've got like 6 cutlasses. I've killed like 1,000 Flying Dutchmen. And it's just like, it becomes kind of a hassle. It's the same thing as the Blood Moon showing up all the time. It's just a hassle. And so anyways, I think they need to put some sort of internal timer. Like, if you get this, you don't get it for like another 2 weeks in game, or another 3 weeks in game, or whatever else. Because at the moment, it seems very common. But with where we are right now, I think we are moving into adamantite. I get orichalcum, but I didn't like it because it was pink, and I just don't like the color pink that much. It has nothing to do with like pink being associated with, you know, being effeminate or anything. Like, I just don't like the color pink. It's kind of a, I never like pastels. Like, washed out colors, I've never liked them. I like things to be solid and like bold and bright. And so, for example, if you look at the thumbnails or the logo for Relic Hunters Zero, I like that color pink, that very punk rock, bright, like in-your-face Energizer Bunny pink. But I don't know, I didn't like the orichalcum armor and the way it looked, and so I tried to leapfrog it as best as I could, and hopefully it works out well in the end. But anyways, that's all the series that we have going for right now. Check out Gunheim, by the way. Last week I did Weekly Indie Newcomer, but Friday was the first day that I noticed YouTube was being funky, and so I don't know if it actually sent out notifications to anybody. So check out Weekly Indie Newcomer if you missed it. I did put one up this week. I think that it was for Gunheim, which is a top-down arena game, much like Relic Hunters Zero, which we were playing this week, and so I might have been a little bit heavy with the shooter games this week. But I like them. I really do sincerely like them, and I thought Gunheim was kind of an interesting idea for a co-op gunslinging game in which players are Vikings with enormous firearms. I thought that was a really funny thing to do. This week, what we've got scheduled, so I'm going to be doing a review this week for Weekly Indie Newcomer. I'm going to be doing a playthrough of Duskers. I'm going to record that tomorrow. That's not going to be Weekly Indie Newcomer, though. Wanderlust Adventures, I'm going to give you a Weekly Indie Newcomer on that this week. I think I have a couple of other titles as well that I've had backburned. I've got a JRPG that I've been playing on and off over the course of the week, because people are always like, why don't you play JRPGs on your channel? And so I listen to what you say, ask and ye shall receive. I've got a review of a JRPG coming in, which actually was a pleasant experience. It was nostalgic. JRPGs haven't changed a whole lot in the last 20 years, but every now and again I get a real sort of just like desire to play one, just to kind of like relive my childhood. And so I grew up during that era with, you know, Genesis and Super Nintendo, Japanese RPGs. Those were almost exclusively what I played back in the day, especially through the PlayStation era. I go through almost obsessively, and I still collect all the games from when I was a kid. I sold them all so that I could get a N64, I think. I sold my entire... I had a big collection of PlayStation games back in the day, and I sold a bunch of them to get, like, I sold probably 80% of my collection. I just kept, like, the real all-stars so that I could get an N64. And then I sold the N64 so that I could, like, go to... I think I sold the N64 so that I could... I don't remember what I sold it for. Actually, I think I sold it to a guy so that I could buy a flat screen or something like that. I don't remember what I sold it for, but I shouldn't have done that either, because now I'm in the market for an N64 again, because I'm trying to create... I've got a big wall shelf in my room where it goes all the way up the wall, and I'm trying to do sort of a thing like... I don't know if you've seen... The Angry Nintendo Nerd. I guess they call him the Angry Video Game Nerd now, but when I was like in 2003, 2004, before YouTube was even a thing, really, he used to be on a website called Screw Attack that somebody linked me back in the day on MySpace or something like that. And I used to watch him back when they only had 2 or 3 videos. I remember I found the Angry Nintendo Nerd really early on in his career, because somebody else, a friend of mine, he was a real internet savvy type of guy who was really into like 4chan and just kind of like digging through the guts of the internet and finding like weird shit. And I remember he sent it to me back when, I think it was right around the time that James did his episode about religious video games, because I thought it was funny as shit, because I have all those religious games because my family was religious. I have all those like Nintendo and Sega Genesis games that are like, they're unofficial Nintendo games. Like what used to happen back in the day is... companies, you had to be, so for it to be an official Nintendo game, in order to make a game for the Nintendo console, it had to be Nintendo certified, which meant you had to jump through a bunch of hoops. Well, what a bunch of these underground right-wing Christian companies did is they just ignored that because of international copyright law, and they just made their own cartridges that would fit inside of a Nintendo console, and it wasn't Nintendo certified at all. The cartridges tend to look really weird and funky because... they weren't made by any official Nintendo channel. And so anyways, I have a whole bunch of those on my shelf back there. I think I got 3 or 4 of them there. I got like a Noah's Ark one. Not the first-person shooter, the one where the water comes up and you got to walk down from the boat and go rescue the animals and come back. It used to be an arcade game back in the day too. I've got Spiritual Warriors or something like that, which is actually kind of a decent little Zelda game. It's not a bad game. I mean, if you get rid of all the religious stuff, it would essentially just sort of be like an early Zelda clone, and it's not a terrible game, actually. It's not bad at all. It takes a little bit of time to get used to, and it plays hymns the whole time. The entire game plays like hymns from the 1600s in the background in like MIDI chiptunes. It's ridiculous. Someday I'll have to drag them back out and show them to you guys. This was my childhood. This was my childhood. Highly indoctrinated right-wing sort of Christian Mennonite colony type deal. It was a trip. It was a trip. So anyways, I don't even remember. How did I get off on this tangent? Jesus. I don't even remember what I was talking about. So I figured I should probably address Icy Ended. That's cool. I think Icy was like the perfect length. That's the weird thing about Icy, is that like it was the perfect length. 15 episodes is almost perfect for YouTube because it eats up like 2 weeks and it doesn't drag out to like 900 episodes, so you don't get stuck behind it for a long time. That's usually, I try to aim for series that do like 15 to 20 episodes. Every now and again I like to go all in on one that does like 45, but it just sort of depends what mood I'm in, I think. I think that with Icy out of the way, not sure what's going to step in to take that slot. In the next week or so, we've got Duskers, we've got Party Hard, we've got Shadowrun Hong Kong, obviously very important series for me. I've been talking with Turtle Beach. My representation has been talking with Turtle Beach about a sponsorship for the channel too. I've been sort of like looking around and trying to solidify ways to keep the channel profitable even through kind of like low periods where we're in the red, and it seems like sponsorship deals are the way to go, especially since like my channel is at a size right now to where I can sort of I can dictate the terms of the contract, which is kind of cool too, where I can be like, well, I'm not going to bring it up like 900 times an episode, but I will wear your product on camera and things like that. And so I'm hoping it'll be like a nice middle ground. I never want the channel to be kind of like a shilling space, but at the moment I'm just trying to like essentially add some security to this as a job because it doesn't come with much by default. I think Better Late Than Dead, I shelved that one. The reason being, and I know people are going to ask about it, Better Late Than Dead is shelved for the moment because where we were at in the series, I got to the point where all that was left to do was walk around the islands looking for these little tiny key cards that were really difficult to find, and they weren't inside the laboratory or anything like that. And so I found that I was potentially going to have like 9-8 hours of me just like walking around looking for key cards on a beach, or just hoping that I find one. And unfortunately, it just was not compelling gameplay, so I decided to let it go and just kind of like let it fall away, I suppose. As far as that's concerned, though, I think that's just about everything that we have running right now. Ark is going to take a hiatus for right now, although I might start streaming survival of the fittest rounds, because I love H1Z1's Battle Royale. I play that a lot, and so I'm thinking survival of the fittest. I might play that a little bit on the channel just to kind of give it a launch. I got invited to do something with like 200 other YouTubers on a survival of the fittest thing, but I don't know. I was really burned out on Ark at the time, and so now I've had like a week and a half, 2 weeks not playing it. I might try and stream it, just kind of like see how my entertainment value goes, because if I'm not entertained, I have trouble entertaining you guys. And so when I burn a game out like that, it can be very difficult for me sometimes to like entertain properly. So I'm going to play around with it this weekend, maybe, like probably, well, the weekend's almost over, but I'll probably play a couple rounds tonight over the course of the week, and then if it turns out pretty cool, maybe I'll do like montages or something. I'm not sure. I'm looking for ways to diversify right now and sort of just like change the channel up, because what we have going right now is not really working, and how much of that is YouTube's fault, because YouTube is being really buggy right now, and how much of that is people getting back to school, and how much of that is my fault. I'm still trying to balance out the allocation there. There's 3 factors to consider, and I'm not sure where the percentages are going to fall, but the next couple of weeks are going to be very important for the channel. If a series disappears, I apologize, but it just means that it had to go, because we need to make room for something else that would potentially be more popular on the channel. And so I just want to make everybody aware that for right now, things are not going fantastically on the channel, but we're not going anywhere. I'm staying positive. I'm usually very good about things like this, and so essentially I could actually keep doing YouTube for like 4 or 5 years without a paycheck, and I'm secure in my position in life right now, so it's not like super terrible if I have to spend a couple months rebranding and kind of like fiddling with things. It really wouldn't be that bad if I had to start a new channel or anything either. I'm not going to. I'm just saying worst case scenario is if I had to start from scratch. I have a pretty decent cushion right now as far as just like the people who represent my channel kind of just like making sure I don't go anywhere. And so I figure everything's going to be okay. I'm staying positive about it, but I want everybody to be on the same page with me, because I really do pride myself on kind of trying to be one of the realest YouTubers. I don't like lying to people. I don't like faking reactions. I don't like throwing bullshit at you. I would rather just like tell you the truth, and if you're going to get mad at me, then get mad at me. And I guess if it drives people away, that's all good, but that's just not who I am. I'm not going to like, you know, I'm not going to bullshit you. I expect everybody to be mature enough to like deal with the reality of the situation, because I have to deal with it in a mature way. So I would hope everybody else can. And so I'm always going to be straight with all of you as best as I can. I'm always going to, you know, kind of not play close to the chest. I'm just going to let you know how it's going, and if it goes, it goes, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So anyways, things are not amazing at the channel right now. I think it's one of those periods like we had 3 or 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, where I just need to kind of get rid of underperforming series and bring in some more things. The lucky thing about that is that this is very difficult to do when there's no new indie games coming out. But as of right now, there are a lot of indie games coming out. We're starting to get into the Christmas season, which is where you really start to see some of these developers release as much as they can. The next month, August into September, is looking good. September into, well, we're good through September. Really, the release lists are not super solidified right now. 2015 has been a really bad year for indie games as far as I'm concerned. I've actually been kind of unimpressed with the selection this year, and the stuff that's been up on my channel has been like the things that I'm like, well, this is what we've got right now, and this is what I like, so let's go ahead and do it. I will see you all later. This is our weekend review where we sit down for a little while and chat, and I just be real with all of you and talk about the way the channel's doing, give you some behind-the-scenes information about what series we have running, how I'm feeling about each of them. If you wanted to play video games with me, I've been playing Path of Exile. My character's name is Leomond, although I think I'm playing another one named Baldric or something right now. In either case, email me. I'm going to give you permission if you wanted to hook up with me through Path of Exile to email me through my business email. Nobody's hitting me up through it right now anyways. It's the weekend and nothing is going on. Nobody emails me on the weekends. So feel free, and I'll try and shoot back my character name so that we can hang out for a little while. In addition, I have also been playing Fallen London, so if you wanted to hook up there, my name is just Splattercat, and we can hang out and have a good time. I love Fallen London quite a bit. It's one of my favorite browser games. It's the only one that I play, actually, because I enjoy the storyline. And after playing Sunless Sea, I find that Sunless Sea fills in the gaps that Fallen London left out, and vice versa, and so I enjoy that. If you wanted to support the channel, I don't really plug this much except for my video logs. You can support us on Patreon. If you take a look down below, I will have a Patreon link for you. It allows you to support the channel as a patron. There are rewards set up through there, although I am going to be restructuring them pretty soon to make them a little bit more believable and beneficial to you as a viewer, because right now it's just me. One night I got drunk and I wrote all those things that I promised on the Patreon. And whereas I like a couple of them, you guys, this video right here is the result of the first Patreon goal. I wouldn't be doing this series right now if the Patreon was not where it was, but this was one of the rewards, is that I was going to do a weekend review with all of you and just hang out on Sundays talking about the channel. And so anyways, you can support us on Patreon if you want. I've got that. If you wanted to sign up for Loot Crate, if you were going to do it anyways, you know that I do those unboxing videos. You can use my code. It costs you nothing, and Loot Crate uses that to track their internal data, and so essentially they send a little silver my way for allowing them to kind of like bring in new subscribers or whatever. In fact, they basically, I mean, they're one of my major like sponsors right now. I'm very careful about who I select to be a sponsor for the channel because I want to make sure the service matches. I would never endorse something that I don't like, is what it comes down to. And so if I already like your product, then I'm usually okay with doing little sponsorship deals. I get a lot of offers. I've probably had about 50 or 60 offers now for different clothing companies and things like that. But at the end of the day, I look at like their little shop and what they have, and I'm just like, I couldn't see myself wearing that for any paycheck, so not gonna do it. In either case, I always try and select things that are things that I enjoy and things that I think are of quality. And so far, like, Loot Crate is one of the only things that's made the grade. In fact, I think it is the only thing that's made the grade. I am talking with Turtle Beach right now, but honestly, I'm going to wait until the headphones get here and some of the gear and kind of play around with it, and we'll see what happens. I will see you all later. My name is Splattercat. Hi, everybody. This is our weekend review. I hope you had a good time. It's not really like our most jovial, or I guess there's not a lot of frivolity in this series, but that's because this is just one of those like check-in things that I like to do with you guys and let you know how I'm feeling, how things are going. I'm positive for the future. I think that if we move things around, we can have a very, very strong end quarter. I will see you all later. Hi to everybody.